Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sports Tech Allstars podcast. By the time you hear this episode, our global sports tech ecosystem report will have been published. So go and download that from our website or our socials. And the whole idea of the ecosystem report is to talk about what is happening in the sports innovation ecosystem across the globe. And today on our pod, I've got a special guest from Brazil. Why not learn about what's happening in one of the fastest growing sports tech markets and one that is probably not written or spoken much about? And we'll change that today. Welcome to the show, Ricardo.
Thanks, Ron. Nice meeting you. My pleasure to be here with you.
Ricardo Mazzucca is the CEO and partner at Arena Hub, a innovation hub in the Brazilian sports ecosystem, sports innovation ecosystem. Ricardo, why don't you tell us more about what Arena Hub is up to? But before I get to Arena Hub, I always want to understand a bit more about the person. We've been connected for a number of years now, and I'm glad that we finally get to do this and officially present, what you're doing to our audience. So let's start there. A little bit about you as a person, and then we'll go into Arena Hub. What's your background? What made you set up Arena Hub?
Okay, good. Again, nice talking to you, Ron. Well, that's a little bit of myself. I was born in Brazil, but for the past 5 years, I've been living here in Portugal with my family. I have my wife here and four of my four kids. I studied advertising in São Paulo, and I did an MBA at ESADE in Barcelona a long time ago. Professionally, my background has always been in the sports industry. But unlike many people, I've only worked at two companies before joining Arena Hub. That's not very common these days. I started my career as a trainee at TV Global, one of the largest media companies in Latin America. After that, I moved to Umbro, the sporting goods company, where I served as South American market manager. And then after a couple of years, I returned to Global, where I spent 20 years there, 15 of those as sports marketing director. In that role, I was responsible for planning all the sports commercial properties of the network, including the World Cup, Olympic Games, Formula One, UFC, volleyball, and any other sport. I was really fortunate to be at a Globo during what I call the golden decade of Brazilian sports, when the country hosted the 2007 Pan American Games. At that time was a huge event compared to the other ones Brazil has hosted before, the 2014 FIFA World Cup and the 2016 Olympic Games. And I really had the opportunity to be directly involved in all these projects and really to get to know much more about how this industry works, right? And it was also different times in the media scenario, not only in Brazil, but in the world. At that time, Globo had almost the whole rights of the sports events. The Globo's portfolio was really huge, and we had almost all rights in every kind of sports. 5 years ago, I moved to Portugal as a plan of my personal life, really to have this experience in Europe, bring my family here. And at almost the same time, I joined Arena Hubby, where I am now a partner CEO. It's really been an incredible journey to help accelerate innovation in this global sports industry that I really like and I've been involved in all my life, combining like business, technology, social impact, and my personal life interests. So it's been quite interesting this time.
I hadn't thought about that or hadn't realized it that the Olympics and World Cup are often so back to back. We have the same situation in the US, of course, happening right now. I mean, the World Cup next year and the LA Olympics following shortly after. So be curious to pick your brain about that scenario. But all of that vast experience that you brought into Arena Hub is interesting. So what was the mission there? What was the idea behind setting up Arena Hub?
Okay. Well, by the way, Arena Hub in this May 2025 celebrates its fifth anniversary. It's a coincidence. The project
Perfect timing. Happy birthday, happy anniversary to you and the team.
That's right. The project really began as a nonprofit association, right, with the goal of, let's say, generating social and economic impact and helping develop the sports industry. Back then, we looked at how the Brazilian ecosystem and how the sports industry in Brazil were developed compared to many other markets. And we still, but at that time, we think we were more steps behind the whole industry. So our plan was really to help accelerate this process. Back there, we positioned ourselves really as an innovation center and a catalyst for entrepreneurship, like directly connecting the whole ecosystem, either corporates, professionals, startups, sports organizations, all stakeholders of the industries to create, support, and accelerate initiatives, companies, and technologies that use sports as a tool for digital and social transformation. That was the idea back then. Well, since then, a lot has changed. Just reminding you here that when we launched Arena Hub, we were in the middle of the pandemic, right? So it was a project that was created as being a co-working space ecosystem was completely destroyed very, very fast because working spaces were no longer needed. The world was changing a lot. So a lot has changed in the world, a lot has changed in the industry and in Arena Hub itself. So while we still operate the association, today we are also a for-profit company. And our position today is that Arena Hub, we accelerate the future of sports through innovation, connection, and education. These are the three core activities that we do. We believe that the sports industry has really massive potential that can be unlocked through innovation, right? And we are a connector, an aggregator, and a business generator in this ecosystem. I have run four main business area. I would say the first one is consulting and innovation. So we do consulting for companies, entities, open innovation programs, either proprietary programs that we develop or programs developed to specific corporations, or entities, sport arenas. We talk about it later. The second business unit is like acceleration of startups and investment. That's another part, maybe core of what we do. We have a third area, which is like a lot of events and content. And the fourth area, that's kind of new, is commercialization of sports assets. We've been representing and having been partners of many businesses, like either media platforms, events, and that we are representing in Brazil and selling these assets in Brazil. As we see innovation as this key driver for growth in the sports industry, we have developed like a strategic framework that helps map and structure how innovation impacts the sports across what we call 5 fundamental pillars. The first one is the sport, right? So how innovation impacts the sport itself, the evolution of sports disciplines. We have many examples. The VAR on football and soccer, they changed the way that the sport is practiced. We go like with the hockey, that's not new, but technology like ball in, ball out, they change the dynamic of volleyball, tennis. So the technology and innovation has a direct impact on the sports. The second pillar that innovation has direct impact is on people. When I say people, I mean athletes, either professional or amateur, right? Innovation really impacts the people, either wearables we use or apps that measure our performance or measure evolution in sports, so forth. The third pillar is the audience. The audience, I mean the fan. The fan is alive in an arena seeing a sport event, or either this fan is consuming sports through platforms, digital platforms. Again, innovation has been affecting and changing and impacting the audience in very direct ways, either on graphics, on TVs, or either on experiences, live experiences in the arena, so forth. Fourth one is regarding how the management of the organizations, like revenue models and management. Again, how innovation is impacting it. And the fifth pillar of sports industries, like knowledge and impact, really the role of sports in education, innovation, and social impact. So we created this framework where we analyze each startup, each product based on how they impact the industry in the 5 pillars, which broadens also the analysis. Is not very specific. It helps broaden, and it really helps to measure business potential, and it really help us to connect these startups and the ecosystem among itself. So, and again, the difference is we really believe that initiatives like ours, like Arena Hub, like ecosystem, really help to accelerate the transformation and the maturity of the market, and also the professionalization of the industry. So that's how we change our view during this 5-year period. And of course, this is an ongoing project. And because of the industry is changing so much, of course, we are adapting ourselves as well to this.
I, of course, love a framework. Sports Tech X has been working with its own framework of for sports tech, which is quite ubiquitous now and used widely across the industry. So anybody who comes up with something that further breaks down or helps people understand the industry, I'm always a fan of. So thank you for sharing that. And also interesting to see the evolution of how Arena Hub positions itself. And I think that's relevant to today's environment because, yeah, this sports is gathering a lot of commercial steam. In fact, and the main reasons I thought of you and wanted to make sure that we showcase Arena Hub in this year's ecosystem report and also get you involved in some of the content is because I met a bunch of your startups recently in Munich, right? So you had a contingent of companies that were part of the hub or had come through with the hub accelerator, or I don't know the exact format, but you brought them across to Munich and were introducing them to that ecosystem. So a bunch of Brazilian startups can connect into the German sports or Europeans. Talk about that, talk about the startups already. So I met a few. Maybe you can highlight some of the key startups that that have come through the hub, and also then talk about what kind of startups are you usually looking to partner with? Is it early stage, maybe a bit more mature? Do you help them with fundraising? Do they all have to be Brazilian, or are there other parts of South America? Walk me through that startup landscape, if you will, within Arena Hub, and then some key examples of success stories that you've had.
Good. Okay, so just a little bit to be clear, how we work with the startups and sports entities. I think it comes to, and then I can give you some examples uh, about what you asked. Yeah, I mean, we just coming back to this Munich thing, we kind of organized a mission from Brazil. We took like 6 startups to Munich. We have this very good partnership, with Colosseum and Sports Tech Nation that had a partnership with the Expo event. And you mean important part on this is really many initiatives like ours in the whole world. It's really important for us to strengthen this partnership because it's very global industry, and it's really important for us to connect, to share knowledge. So it's part of what we do, right? As I mentioned, we accelerate the future through innovation, connection, education. We created along this 5-year period a very large ecosystem today with approximately 200 startups and more than 180 sports entities, right? Again, when we talk about startups, we're talking about all levels of maturity. So we have startups that are just ideas. We have very early stage startups. We have mature startups. We have those that are operating not only in Brazil but abroad. We have international startups as part of our ecosystem as well. Because especially when we look at Brazil and Latin America, which is a market of more than 600 million people, and Brazil itself, more than 200 million people. It's a country that loves sport. It's a country that loves new technologies. Brazilians are very into anything new that comes in technology. Brazilians like to do that. So it's a very interesting market, although with its own characteristics, specific characteristics, but it's a very interesting market for international startups to explore, or at least to understand. You can think about entering for at a specific period following their.
Just on the startup, sorry, Ricardo, on the startup. So what is the ratio? So of you mentioned 600 or 200 plus companies, 200 plus organizations. So how many of them are Brazilian and how many of them are international? What is the
I would
rough
say
percentage?
okay, we have like the most majority
Majority
Brazilian.
Brazilian, yeah.
15 to 20 international startups. Okay, you
So
have
10%.
European. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
10%. Yeah, 5 to
yeah, fair
10%.
enough.
Yeah, you have European ones. Yeah, lots of European. I live here in Portugal, so it helps a lot by being in contact with the market as well. We have the Spanish startups. We have French ones. We have Canadians, Americans. Again, some of them they're already operating in Brazil. Some of them are there just to really understand how the market works and to make some initial connections with potential future clients. So it's kind of understand. And this is part of the job that we do as Arena Hub as an advisor of startups to really help international startups that want to understand the Brazilian market. We kind of help them to understanding more than understand, to really connect with potential customers, potential clients, right? So for sports entities, and this is totally related with the startup, 3 main focus that we do. One is a continuous work, and I think this is very important, on the evolution of the mindset. I like to say evolution of the mindset of these sports entities, reinforcing the importance for them to understand innovation as a fundamental aspect in their long-term strategy. That's something kind of new. I mean, sports entities did not think about innovation until very few years ago, right? And now, of course, I'm talking about Brazil. Of course, other markets are much more mature, but Brazil it's something new, and really important to show them this. It's really not a short-time process. It takes time, but we see a continuous evolution. Every day, more and more people of these entities are interested in the subject. They're amplifying their connections and relationship with startups and companies, and really they are paying more attention to this. They are creating their innovation divisions. Still very, very few of the sports entities have this, but I mean, some of them they're creating at least a person responsible for innovation. So it's kind of changing, right? Second activity we do with sports entities is really regarding connection. We connect them. They are looking for transformation and innovation to startups and companies that can offer products and services to them. So this is one core thing that we do as Arena Hub. And because of our vast ecosystem, we are able to connect lots of startups to lots of sports entities. And the third one is what we call innovation as a service that we offer to sports entities. Again, as I just mentioned, many of them do not have budget for it. They do not have people to work in innovation. They do not have anyone responsible. So we kind of offer as kind of third party that is responsible of their innovation department in the sports entity. So that's something that is growing in the market, and we are offering this service as part of the Arena Hub. As the startups are concerned, Ron, we have different approaches, right? One is really, again, connection. We connect the startups with potential clients, not only in Brazil, but outside. As we just mentioned, Munich, we took 6 startups there from different, one was like wellness platform that is growing very well. There was another one that they are producing like vitamins things for athletes. They are on the food thing, and it's growing as well. I had one that works with tickets, one that fan engagement, another one that works with athletes, how to connect athletes to potential investors and to potential sponsors. So we had kind of mix of startups that were in the event, and it's something important that we are, as an ecosystem, we are open not only for sport techs, we are open for any startup that can add value to the sport industry, right? Many fintechs can add value to the sport industry. Many martechs can add value to the sport industry. So I think that's part of what we do, and a lot of what you guys do in Sports Tech X to show how big is the industry in the sports industry is really to attract other startups from other verticals that, hey, sport can be an interesting field for you to operate, for you to grow. I mean, sports is a global industry, although it has its characteristics, do not have the barriers of entry as fintech, as the financial and telecommunication segments, for instance, right? What a club in Brazil needs is very similar to what a club in Germany, to what a club in China. It kind of, the needs are very similar, of course, again, with specific characteristics, but it's a very global. So it's part of what we do to call attention of the sports industry to other startups that are not only sports tech. So this is something that we are doing, and we've been seeing much more. This is, I mean, I'm talking about the Brazilian reality, right? This is changing. We have in Arena Hub, in our portfolio of startups, lots of startups that are not sport, weren't born as sport techs, but they are already working in the sports industry. For startups, and some of the startups that were in Munich, we have an acceleration program. It's called Podium Labs, that we are working in our third batch now. We're starting in May. Again, we have the innovation programs that we develop, either proprietary or for third parties, that startups can apply and be part of it. We have many examples. I can tell you afterwards some of the examples that we develop. So startups that can apply and connect and present their solutions and connect and maybe earn contracts with potential clients. And also, as we just mentioned, we work as advisors for startups, not only Brazilian, but international ones that want to understand the market, and also for the Brazilian ones that are looking for opportunities in other markets as well. So this is kind of what we do with internationals, with the startups. And Munich was one of these examples, really how to bring them close to different markets, to different realities, markets that are much more mature than Brazil in terms of development of startups. So it's part of what we do as a company and as an ecosystem.
We're really motoring along in this podcast, in this episode, Ricardo. And I mean, clearly you guys are up to a lot. It's so interesting to hear all the stuff that you guys are busy with. So I think you've outlined all the different ways that you collaborate with entities, with startups, and so on. You've also addressed what kinds of startups that you're working with. So stage agnostic, also perhaps not industry agnostic, but anybody who's interested in sports is of interest to you. I want to get your perspective on the Brazilian sports industry in general then, because I think this is the biggest value I think you can bring to our audience, is just paint us a picture of how has that evolution been. I mean, as somebody as an industry insider for 20 plus years, as you mentioned at the start, you've seen various iterations of it. How open is the market to innovation? For example, I'll set some context. We divide the sports tech investment cycle between North America, Europe, and kind of APAC, which includes the Middle East. So it's a really wide region. Beyond that, we say the rest of the world. The rest of the world is basically Brazil. There is nothing else happening of note anywhere else. The top 100 companies outside of these regions are all Brazilian. It's basically in fitness, a little bit in fantasy that's emerging, maybe gaming to an extent. How has your experience been on ground from an organization readiness perspective and also from a supply side? Like what kind of startups, what topics and trends are you seeing that most companies are moving towards?
Great question. I mean, if we go back 5 years, I think the market has evolved considerably, right? But still, we used to say still have lots of grass to cut. I mean, the grass is still very high. We have lots of space to cut, which shows that we have a lot of potential for this investment, for the development of the industry. Again, I used to say that we are a few steps behind some more mature markets like the US and Asia and even some markets in Europe, right? I think one point is just mentioned is regarding like this culture of innovation in the sports entities, right? When you talk about fintechs, Brazil has great examples of many international, very high successful fintechs. It also happens with other areas as well. In sports, it's kind of changed. We have two very big examples in sports. Wellness is one example. The other one is wildlife that they really grew up. But I mean, it's still a market that the sports entities that are one of the primary clients of these startups, they do not have this mentality, they do not have the budget, and they are not really very into innovation yet. Of course, I'm generalizing here. Of course, there are many examples of people that are looking at it, that people are doing great things, but the market as a whole is still a big way to change. So this is one point. When you talk about startups, I would say that startups that are very developed here has to do like a lot with fun engagement. I think fun engagement is a must in Brazil, as it is in any other country in the world. Like how the sports entities really have to understand their fans, bring them and transform them into long life consumers. So this is something that is, I would say, it's more advanced here in Brazil. We have several cases of startups that are operating in this area and they are being very successfully, right? Not only in Brazil, and also they are also starting to work with international clients as well. They develop their platforms, unifying the ideas of all the points of connections of the supporters of the consumers with that specifically team, and they are joining all this information and maximizing the revenues, changing the way the teams, clubs communicate with their fans. So they are doing the whole job. Wellness, as I mentioned to you, I think it's also another area that is very important, and of course, in performance, I think is also a big market here. Ron, when you take a look at football clubs, they are looking at it. Most of them they are adapting innovation technology, and they're, of course, I'm talking about tier one clubs, right? But the other clubs are also looking at it. So I think performance is a big thing. Again, media content is another area. When you take a look at how the streaming market, how the media market is changing in Brazil, we see now the appearance of many streaming platforms, sport vertical platforms or agnostic platforms that have different kinds of contents, and the way the consumers are consuming content that's very different, right? So these guys really have to adapt themselves to this new reality of the fans. So this is something that is really growing and is really changing, shifting the way the market was when I was at Global some years ago and how the market is operating now. Let me give you one example of one area that I think it's still very underdeveloped in Brazil. When you take a look at venture operations led by sports entities, venture capital, that's almost do not exist, right? We take a look like sports entities investing in startups and companies, like a lot of American companies do this in Europe. Many of them does as well in Asia. In Brazil, does not happen. Again, they haven't seen the potential, or they do not have this as a priority, or haven't seen the potential of being partners, of being investing in startups that can solve their problems and solve the industry problems. They are not seeing this as a potential future revenue stream that they can help for them to grow their business. So again, I think it's kind of maturity of the industry, professionalization of the industry. They need to be more in contact with this, and they really need to see value in these innovations. We used to say that the fastest way for you to enter a client, if you are a startup and you want to enter a client in Brazil, again, I'm generalizing here, that's not all the cases, but I would say it's very much is like, do not present your solution or your product as a cost for the sports entity. If they see it as a cost, although it's very good in the long term, you're going to have lots of difficulties to implement it. You really must show them that you're going to add revenues in the short term, that they're going to see the benefits really in the short term. So they might start operating with you and understand what you do. Of course, they might increase and follow and keep their contract with you. But if it comes like with a big cost for them, it's going to be very hard for you to start an operation, to start a contract with a sports entity in Brazil. So I don't know if it was clear, but I think that there are many challenges of this. But again, as I said, many opportunities. It's a very, like as I said, the grass is too high, have lots of grass to cut. But those that come to Brazil and those who explore the market with the right fit, with their right solutions, with good connections, talking to good clients, have a great potential to really start in advance of the others and capture a big chunk of the market. I think it's lots of potential.
Lots of grass to cut. I think that'll be the tagline for this episode. Mm-hmm. I like that line. I'm going to use it somewhere. But no, fair point. Interesting to see also that it sounds like a lot of the main challenges that we see in other markets are also there. in Brazil. I mean, yeah, of course, maybe other parts of the world, innovation is a bit ahead of what we see in certain South American markets, including Brazil, but it's not that far. I mean, a lot of the challenges you have to costs and resources are an issue. There aren't that many investors. It just needs a couple successful ones to build that use case. We're seeing that shift now that, of course, there are more investors entering the market, especially in the US, but also increasingly in Europe. I think this trend has to increase globally as well. Ricardo, we're absolutely coming nearly to the end now. So I want to ask about what is coming up for Arena Hub in the next 12, 18, 24 months. What do we have to look forward to?
Great, great question. Well, we have some. I think we just announced in the beginning of the year. I think it's important to bring it back here to your audience that we partner with the Brazilian Olympic Committee, and Arena Hub is the official innovation agents of the Brazilian Olympic Committee until the Los Angeles Games in 2028. I think that was a must contract that we closed with the Brazilian Olympic Committee in terms of being responsible to lead the innovations together with them, of course, following their guidelines, following the strategic planning, but we are their official partner. So we started on, that's very interesting. We started with a big mapping of the innovation status that we call of the Brazilian federations. We are already in this process of analyzing all the information that we received from almost all the sports federations, that we are analyzing how they are positioned in terms of innovation, how they see innovation, how they are planning to adapt innovation in their day-to-day operations. So we are in this phase one, let's call it, of the project. And after that, we're going to develop a series of activities, not only for the Brazilian market, but also for international market as well. So we plan to have in this 4-year period some initiatives that will count with international startups that are willing to maybe present some ideas to the Brazilian Olympic Committee. Why not? So at the time, we were going to, again, use the collaboration with our partners worldwide to promote this when the time comes. So this is one thing. We have lots of events that are happening. We renew the partnership with Rio Innovation Week. That is a big innovation event in Rio de Janeiro in August, that we are for the 5th year their partners, and we are taking care of the curatorship of the sports tech stage. So we take leaders of the industry, take startups, take sports entities and leaders to talk, share their ideas, visions, discuss about trends in the industry. And we'll soon, I cannot say yet, but we'll soon have some news about other events that we are organizing for the market. And of course, we have the acceleration program, we have the consulting that we are doing to connect companies in Brazil. I think 2025 started as a very promising year, and I'm really confident that it's going to be a great year because, again, the industry is changing so much and people are more open to it. And yeah, I think we are leading this connection part in the market, and I think it's important to follow what we do.
Great to hear. Again, keeping that busy theme going. So, of course, with the Olympic partnership, that'll be exciting. Look forward to seeing what comes out of that. We've got an event coming up, and of course, everything else. So, keep us posted with all the news. We'll keep sharing it with our audience. Brilliant, Ricardo. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us and share all the great work that you're doing at Arena Hub. Before I let you go, my last question: I always want to know what has been your favorite sporting moment.
Ron, can I tell two? Because I think there was one. I'm going to say two. Again, because of what I mentioned earlier of Mazzucca being involved in these Olympic Games, I could see Usain Bolt's first medal, second medal, and third medal in the 3 different games that he.
Oh, wow.
So that is, of course, one great moment. 3 great moments inside of one category. And the other one, of course, is related to football, to Palmeiras, which is my home team in Brazil. And then I can bring my kids and seeing some of the championships that we won together with my kids. It's especially the Palmeiras and Flamengo one. That was a great experience. So yeah, I mean, sports, many experiences, but if I had to choose one, I chose 2. That's what I would say to you.
That's a great one. I mean, you've been there for all 3, including the world record, the fastest man alive, and all of that. And you were there in the arena for that moment. Incredible. And if I had to ask you to pick one particular season of Palmeiras winning the Campeonato, is it the Campeonato? Sorry.
It was Libertadores. We won Libertadores in 2020 and 2021. So I would say both of them, but the other one with Flamengo, which had a great team, was there at the end of 21, if I'm not mistaken. That was a great one. Again, if I go back to the first one that Palmeiras won, was in 99. Great again, because it was the first Libertadores. But I think I had no kids at that time. So the experience, sports is really interesting to live with your family, right? I used to say that sports is so magic that you remember with whom you were in specific sporting moments. The clothes you were wearing, where you were, and I mean, sports and very
who you hugged for the first time. Yeah.
Has this power of connecting you with your family, friends, and so forth, and remembering exactly what we were doing at that time.
It gets etched in your memory. Fantastic, Ricardo. Thank you for sharing those moments. I will definitely go and look up those iconic Copa Libertadores winning moments from Palmeiras. Best of luck to your team for the upcoming season, I guess. Thank you so much. Best of luck to the Arena Hub team for everything that you've got going on. Thank you so much once again for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. That is done. That's a wrap for another Sports Tech All-Stars episode covering Brazil, a place that I haven't gone yet. Ricardo, we have to change that. I have to come for one of your events. We'll make that happen sometime soon. To the audience, as I mentioned at the start, our ecosystem report should be out now. Go get your hands on that. You'll hear expert opinions from Ricardo and various others that we featured alongside what is happening in the global sports tech ecosystem. We've also got our applications for our sports tech bootcamp open at the moment. So check that out as well. Details available on our website and our socials. It's a 6-week program for anybody looking to learn more about what's happening in the world of sports and innovation and investment. All right, guys. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Tech All-Stars podcast with Rohan Malhotra. If you like our show, let us know and leave a review. And if you want to know more about us, check out sportstechx.com, where you can find our latest industry reports and updates. For a deeper dive into all things sports tech, check out our comprehensive database, Sports Tech DB, at sportstechdb.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at SportsTechX on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Join us next time for another insightful conversation with a leader in sports tech.